Yay Media Group.
They called me up and asked me to do this Netflix series. And I said, well, let me read it. And they said, well, they only have the pilot. And I said, okay, I'll read the pilot. I read the pilot. My character was introduced on the last page of the script. And I said, so I don't know what this is. I don't know what you're asking me to say yes to. And they said, well,
like
goes
the
back
Oliver
to the
Stone
Oliver Stone
situation.
story, right?
exactly.
Hey dude, I think the 90s are calling.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Hey Dude, the 90s Called podcast. I am Christine Taylor. I am here with my partner in nostalgia, David Lasher. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
We are in our Thanksgiving week, and we are going to be very shortly giving you part 2 of our Matthew Modine interview, which we're very excited to for you guys to finish up the rest of that. But David, very quickly, what are your Thanksgiving plans? What do you got?
Oh, well, Casey is coming home from Texas. Hannah's coming home from New York. It's the first time our whole family will be together. I can't even remember. So we'll be doing it at our house, and I'm just so excited. You know, when your kids are
amazing, up the best. Yes, we're going to do the same. We're going to have everybody at home. Are you guys cooking? Do you cook? Do the kids help cook? Yeah.
Yeah. Hannah's way into it. Even Chelsea cooks now. I will do my best to carve the turkey, which doesn't always go great, but we'll put it together.
Yeah. I know.
Who does your cooking?
Well, I cook a lot, except I don't eat turkey. I'm vegetarian and my daughter's vegan.
Right.
So we have like turkey eaters, but then we also have tofurkey eaters.
No way.
Tofurkey. Yeah, it's tofu turkey.
What is it? Is
really
it in the
yummy.
shape of a turkey?
No, it's not. It's like, it actually looks like a loaf of bread almost. It's kind of gross when you look at it. It really looks like comedic next to like the beautiful turkey. But all it is a good protein source and because to me, the most fun about Thanksgiving is all the rest of the stuff.
The sides. Yeah. The stuffing.
Yes, it's the stuffing and the sweet potatoes and then all the desserts. And so it's just, I always feel like there's just tons of butter that I consume over Thanksgiving.
There's nothing healthy on a Thanksgiving table.
No. So anyway, as we sort of salivate over our Thanksgiving meals, here is our part 2 to Matthew Modine. Everybody, please enjoy and happy Thanksgiving. When you went to England for 20 months, for almost 2 years, I assume Carrie went with you, and you guys sort of just made England your home for that period of time.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about being broke. So Birdie gets into the Cannes Film Festival, and we go to the southern France to the Cannes Film Festival, and I called Kubrick up because at that point I knew that I was going to do Full Metal Jacket, and I told him I need to go straight from Cannes to London. He said, but we don't start filming for 2 months. And I said, yeah, but I don't have to tell you about preparation. I need to get over there and start getting in, combat ready. I got to, start memorizing my lines and, all this bullshit. And it was purely because I was broke. I had no money. And I wanted to get to England so I could get per diem.
Oh my God.
I had no money.
While you're in the Cannes Film Festival about to start a Kubrick film, people should know this. Young actors, it's hard to make a living.
It is. I think it's come full circle where, actors don't have quotes anymore. You used to, you work really hard to get your price up. Yeah. And then that would be your price. And there's no guarantee that that's going to be your price on the next project anymore, or that make you ask for a little bit more. It's
it doesn't. It feels like it all started to go backwards again, where it was sort of just like you feel lucky to be working, and if they're paying you, great. It's like not about asking for something. You're like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing.
We'll be dancing for our supper.
Right.
Like Oliver, like in Oliver. But so was for Full Metal Jacket, and I just want to say it because it's just so incredible, and what you're doing in that movie is so unique. I feel like you have such a stillness and there's something so captivating watching you in that film, and there's so many great talents. Like I couldn't even believe. I mean, so many actors that we know and love now, but the sort of young Vince D'Onofrio and that tragic story, and you being in that room, and just how good all that, and that, by the way, reminded me of Tropic Thunder a little bit in the way that like those sequences, which, Ben parodied in Tropic Thunder, like you guys had to have done that real basic training for a period of time, I assume. Yes?
Yeah, that part of the filming was at least 6 months. You go to boot camp for 8 weeks, I think is what I don't know. There'll be some Marine who'll correct me, but I think it's I say it in the opening credits. I don't remember what it is, but I think it's about 8 weeks you go through basic training. But yeah, we were in boot camp for a long, long time. Vincent blew out his knee. He had to have knee surgery, and so a lot of those sequences when he's running, he had his knee worked on and had a brace, and he must have been in excruciating pain when we were filming those sequences. And people always ask, how did you with R. Lee Ermey and you must have been laughing all the time because everything he says is so funny, but his teeth were so rotten, and he smoked a couple packs of cigarettes a day. He drank gallons of coffee. So bad teeth, cigarettes, and coffee. When he was in your face yelling at you, there was all kinds of horror coming in your face. Yeah,
but it worked.
Yeah, because drill instructors don't generally yell for 6 months, So he started losing his voice, and it tearing the I don't know, his throat was bleeding.
Oh my
so
gosh.
they gave him a steroid spray. So then you had cigarettes, coffee, nervous tension, blood and steroid spray,
medication, just like the overall unwellness that was being shot at you.
Matthew, I just recently saw an interview with Sidney Pollack talking about Stanley Kubrick, and he talked about you saying that he believed that you had told Stanley Kubrick that you liked a certain take because it felt real. And Stanley Kubrick said to you, real is good, interesting is better.
Yeah.
And for me, like I always thought like the best actors are what, as long as it's authentic and real, but to do something interesting, I don't know. I found that really thought provoking.
Yeah. Interesting is always better than real. Because oftentimes, when an actor says that felt really good, I was really in the moment. The camera sometimes can't photograph emotion. That physical action says something louder than. Marlon Brando really understood that. Jack Nicholson really understood that about physical behavior and how a gesture can mean so much more than an emotion or a feeling. That quote, I don't remember Stanley ever saying that to me, or I think I met Sidney at Stanley Kubrick's funeral, and I think I told him that, but it was Jack Nicholson that Jack Nicholson said that this was real. This is what people really do in a situation like that. Right. And Stanley said it's real, but it's not interesting. That was I heard that story about Jack Nicholson.
But it's definitely something that stays with you and makes you think when you're on set in front of a camera.
With the success that you had, did it start to get to that point for you where you had to, where scripts were coming your way and you really had to pick and choose the projects you were, wanting to give your time and energy to? Because when I look at this list of directors that you've worked with, like truly some of the best, some of the greatest directors we have, and it seems like you've worked with so many of them. Was that deliberate, or do you feel like you happened to luck into some of these projects, or were you, did you sort of have the pick of the litter at that point when you started finding success?
I think that it was based on scripts. I was fortunate that really wonderful directors were offering me really interesting roles, but I don't think it's a coincidence that really great directors have really great scripts. And so that's what I've made a few mistakes. I've grown to really love Oliver Stone, and there was a moment when he wanted me to do, was it called Wall Street?
Of course, yeah.
And I said, well, I'd love to read the script. And he said, I don't have it yet. And I said, well, I'll wait. And he goes, no, you have to agree to do the film now. And I said, but I don't know what I'm agreeing to. And it turned into an explosively violent confrontation, because he had won the Academy Award, maybe for Midnight Express or
Platoon, maybe
Platoon. Yeah. He won this. Yeah, Platoon.
And wanted you to. I think it won Best Picture, but he wanted you to commit to Wall Street without seeing a script because he was Oliver Stone.
Exactly, and I couldn't do it, and he got really pissed off. And I kind of famously turned down Top Gun because I told you I grew up in Utah, and the Russians were the horrible, worst people on the planet. They were monsters. If you touched a Russian's head, you might find horns hidden under the hair. And so when Mrs. Soffel, the movie with Diane Keaton and Mel Gibson, they couldn't go to the Berlin Film Festival, so they invited me to go. And I was like, yeah, I want to go to Berlin. So I get to Berlin, and they asked me, would I like to go to East Berlin? I said, I can't, I'm American. And they said, no, you can, because you are. It's the West Berliners can't go into East Berlin. So I said, yeah, I want to go. So I went across Checkpoint Charlie, and they were showing me around, and they brought me to this monument for the millions of Russians who had died fighting the Nazis in the Second World War. And that interesting fact had been omitted from my American history class.
Oh, God.
And so when I met these Russian soldiers at the monument, and they were no different than my brother Mark, who had gone to Vietnam. They were just kids, and I was smoking then. I gave them American cigarettes, and they gave me pins from their uniform. They could speak English, and I couldn't speak any Russian. And they were just really nice guys. And so when I came back from Berlin, I was really pissed off that I'd been taught and educated in school to believe that they were horrible people.
Right.
And that was the script that was waiting for me. It was Top Gun to play Maverick. And I said, I can't do this. I can't be a part of perpetuating this falsehood, about the Russians. Although I guess we never really see the Russians in Top Gun.
Yeah.
They just look like hornets or something, hidden behind a mask.
Yeah, it's all masked, right? You never really, they don't really go there. Yeah. Oh God, what a crazy revelation. And then I did Full Metal Jacket. Yeah, so that was the more appropriate film for me to do was, and what I learned from Stanley and what I learned from Full Metal Jacket that I think is very important. And if you look at Stanley's films, there's a kind of theme that's in them all the way back to 2001: A Space Odyssey, when the early man uses a bone to crush a skull, and then he uses the same bone to crush the skull of another early human, and they discover this weapon that can be used to dispatch your enemies or people that are not part of your group or tribe, and then he throws the bone into the air, and it becomes what I consider to be one of the greatest edits in the history of film. The bone becomes a spaceship floating through space with that beautiful piece of classical music playing. Mm-hmm. The Blue Danube, I think it is. That is what Stanley was saying with that film, with Paths of Glory, with Dr. Strangelove, with Full Metal Jacket, is that unless we learn to solve our problems in peaceful
in a peaceful manner through dialogue, through discussion, through collaboration and compromise. As long as we keep reaching for that bone or building nuclear bombs to solve our problems, there's no hope for us. That we have to evolve away from that violent past. And so when in Full Metal Jacket, when Private Joker was standing over that young girl, I told Stanley that I wanted to splash blood on the audience. I wanted them to feel the responsibility of the people watching the film, the people who send young men to go fight in war. I want them to feel the responsibility of that young girl's death, that this is what we do to our kids when we send them to war, is they never come home. They'll never be the same because they've seen things and they've done things. In the case of Joker, shooting this young girl, putting her out of her misery, that he'll spend the rest of his life with that horror in his head.
Yes. Yeah. Seeing that face,
Yeah.
remembering that moment. You're absolutely right. Oh,
So it was collaborative with him in that way, because you always hear that how meticulous he is and all the takes after takes, but you had suggestions and he would take them or
all
listen?
the time. And that's the biggest fallacy of Kubrick, of Christopher Nolan, of Alan Parker, Alan Pakula, Harold Becker. All the best directors I've worked with always say that 90% of making a good movie is casting the right actor.
Oh, wow.
And Stanley Kubrick, this was a really wonderful example of, sometimes actors will be on set and they'll say, I'm going to go 50%. I'm going to go half speed and save it for the take, right?
Yeah.
You've heard actors say that.
of course. Yes.
I'm going to save it for the take. And Stanley would say, how do I save my direction to the take? How do I 50% direct? He goes, I don't know where to put the camera until the actor does the scene. And if you don't do it the way that you're going to do it, if you're doing it 50% and then you start doing it 100%, I might discover that I put the camera in the wrong place to capture the emotion.
So true.
And that's extraordinary.
Makes sense. Yep.
And I think that people think that he pre-visioned his movies because of 2001: A Space Odyssey, where there was such gigantic sets and gimbals, and that he had to storyboard the movie so specifically because the movie is so specific. But when you see Vivian Kubrick's documentary that she made about the making of The Shining, you can see Stanley trying to find the shot with Jack Nicholson lying on the floor, looking up, trying to hear, trying to there.
I know.
He's
Isn't that the coolest? It's so great to see, to be, behind the curtain, to see that, to see it, the happening in real time. That it was not all
never
thought
saw
out
that.
and pre-planned. Oh, it's so great.
Oh my
It's a
God.
great
I got to watch
documentary.
that. Michelle Pfeiffer was on a podcast this week, and they asked her, what was the movie you had the most fun? What was the set you had the most fun on? She said Married to the Mob was the most fun
Did
she's
she?
ever had on a movie. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. It's 30 years ago, but what an amazing original film.
Yeah. Well, that's so great to know that she likes the movie. I've never seen Michelle Pfeiffer since the day we wrapped the movie. I don't think we did any publicity together. I don't remember, but
Oh,
I feel like the movie was wrapped and then I never saw her again.
I would have thought you guys would have been together for a year of celebratory congrats and all that.
No.
I feel like that's something people don't know also with filmmaking. And it's that you really do sort of, you become this sort of family and back in the day, like you said, when movies would take a few months to shoot, you were sort of, everyone was living together or on location and hanging out and working together every day. And then it would sort of end. And if not everyone stayed super close friends or in contact, you really lost contact. I mean, David, that's sort of, Matthew, David and I did a TV series together when we were teenagers. That was on Nickelodeon. And when the show ended, It was like 1991, and we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have, like, everyone had a home phone number. That was our contact for each other. And we all kind of like went off and only reconnected when they started having reunions, when the show had enough of like a sort of fanfare. But I think people don't realize that, like, a lot of times, even on sets, some of the biggest, stars in the movie, you might have one interaction with. If you're not in a scene with them, you might not even see that actor the whole time you're shooting, right? It's just such an odd way of working. And then sometimes you remain friends with everybody, and you get, they're lifelong friends. But that's so interesting that you have not crossed paths with Michelle Pfeiffer in all these years, because that's such a great movie.
It's so great.
Yeah, she's so good in the movie. I had a terrific time working on the film, and I have to thank Michelle and Jonathan Demme for talking me into it, because I didn't realize how broken I was after Full Metal Jacket. It was pretty traumatizing. It was a lot happened. Also, we were there during Chernobyl, and radiation was falling. And my son was born. My father had a heart attack. My manager, I didn't have an agent. I just had a manager named Chuck Guinness. He died. There was a lot that happened while we were making the film. And then I came back and did Orphans with Alan Pakula, starring Albert Finney and Kevin Anderson. And
such a great play. It's such a, that was the film version of the play. Yes, it's such a great play. Yes, beautiful.
It was a terrific experience. And I just fell in love with Albert Finney. He was such a nice man. And then I didn't want to work on a film unless I was working, because that was what was so rewarding about doing Orphans, was that we shot it, I think, 18 days over in Queens at, what is that studio in Queens?
Silver Cup?
Silver Cup, thank you.
Yeah.
Silver Cup, yeah. And it was all inside my little apartment. The whole thing takes place on one set.
Right.
So when I got the script for Married to the Mob, I just thought it's not enough to keep me busy. I want to be really busy. I want to be exhausted when I go home. And because of the nature of that film being kind of an ensemble film with Alec Baldwin and Michelle and Dean Stockwell and Mercedes Ruehl, who's so terrific. She got nominated, as did Dean Stockwell. They both got nominated for the film.
Oh, yeah. And Oliver Platt, right? So good.
Oliver Platt, he's terrific. And so I just said, there's not enough there. And Jonathan said, no, I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to add some scenes. And then he added some scenes. And I said, look, the movie's not about the detective. It's about married to the mob. It's about her character being married to the mob. And I don't want you to ruin the movie in order to get me to do it. Just find somebody who wants to play the part the way it's written. It's terrific. And he goes, no, I'm going to add some stuff. He kept adding stuff. And then Ed L'Amato, who represented Michelle and I, was a really powerful. He also represented Mel Gibson and Richard Gere and Denzel Washington. He was a powerhouse in the industry, Ed L'Amato. And he said to me, Matthew, you're going to do this goddamn movie. And I think he was kind of like, getting me by the shoulders and shaking me and saying, you got to snap out of it. You got to,
You're not saying no to this movie.
He's acting like a mobster to get you to play in the mobster movie.
Exactly.
Oh, that must have been cathartic, though, like you said, to be able to go and have a completely different experience on a set in that kind of way, coming from Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. And so light and funny, and the character's so innocent,
Jonathan Demme was a wonderful director. Again, very open to suggestion from anybody, from the grip and electric to, the medic on the set. He craft service. If somebody saw something and had a good idea, he'd go, oh, that's a great idea. Because he knew, he would say, in the end, it's going to be my idea. It's my movie.
Exactly.
My name, it's going to say directed by, right.
Yeah. So if he liked the idea, it was like great. If he didn't like the idea, just flush it down the toilet. But
Right.
but he wasn't he wasn't precious, about taking
Right.
suggestions from people.
Right. The ego is not in the way, and he's open-minded. I think that's, a great artist should be open to collaboration.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to
Yeah,
hear
no
that.
matter what, no matter what. Or there's so many things. We don't want to keep you forever, but I do want to talk about, just because we have so many of our listeners and fans, how did you come to Stranger Things? And was that a no-brainer for you, or were you a little tentative and hesitant to doing a TV show? And because it has become such a pop culture in this world, and my kids were obsessed with it when it came out, and it was just like it sort of flipped everything upside down, and it was such a throwback to the period of time, like you talked about at the beginning of this interview, where people connected, where people got on bikes, kids rode bikes to go see each other, and that nostalgia.
Yeah.
So tell us about how that came to you, and if that was, and what your experience has been on the show as it's coming to a close. Correct? Like, this is our final season.
The final season.
Yep.
Final. I'm going out to Los Angeles. I guess in a couple weeks for the premiere in Los Angeles. Yeah, I was in England working on a movie that didn't work. It was called Hippopotamus. It was a good idea. I don't know that the film. I don't know. I actually haven't seen the film. I've seen a little bit of it. And I thought, I don't want to watch this. I'm not going to enjoy this.
Oh no!
Because I was. Maybe I was miscast. I was playing. I don't know. Let's forget about it. It's not important. So I was doing that movie, and they called me up and asked me to do this Netflix series. And I said, well, let me read it. And they said, well, they only have the pilot. And I said, okay, I'll read the pilot. I read the pilot. My character was introduced on the last page of the script. And I said, so I don't know what this is. I don't know what you're asking me to say yes to. And they said, well,
Like
goes
the
back
Oliver
to the
Stone
Oliver
situation.
Stone story, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And you don't want to get yelled at either. So right.
Yeah. So they said, well, the Duffer Brothers, they want to talk to you. And I said, okay. And we read, and they sent me a lookbook, which was really terrific. But I told them, I said, but it doesn't tell me anything about you as filmmakers, because it's just pictures from like Firestarter, from Altered States, from Jaws, from E.T. It was just a lookbook. It was done very cleverly. The book looked like an old Stephen King novel that had been carried in somebody's back pocket all summer long.
Very cool. Yes, yes.
Yeah, it was a cool lookbook. But I said, all this does is demonstrate that you know how to cut and paste pictures from other people's movies. Yeah.
What is
call
your
them out.
vision? Right. Exactly.
I love this.
And they said, well, no, this guy is a really important character that, he teaches this girl how to have telepathic powers. And he's a really pivotal, the whole thing begins with him. And if we don't have a really, great actor to play this part, it's not going to work. And I said, well, okay, let me read a couple more scripts. And they said, we don't have them. And I said, how can you be making a television series and not have the scripts that you're going to shoot? Well, we write them as we go along. And I said, again, like you just pointed out, I was saying, well, I don't know what I'm saying yes to. And so I passed. I passed 3 times.
Oh,
and they just
my
kept,
gosh.
They kept, yeah, I don't know why the Duffers, they really, really, really wanted me to play that
The
part.
Duffers loved Matthew Modine.
Yeah.
They needed
Yeah,
you in this.
I get it.
Wow.
You know what their favorite movie of mine is? Cutthroat Island, the pirate movie with Gina Davis.
There you go.
A lot of great filmmakers have said that, I believe,
Really?
that they love. I think Quentin Tarantino
Quentin Tarantino said it, yeah.
called that's a great movie, Cutthroat Island. Yeah. Anyway, that's another.
I think it's a better movie than Pirates of the Caribbean.
I loved Cutthroat Island. It is
Yeah.
so much fun. It is
Yeah.
so much fun. I mean,
Yeah.
Rennie Harlan, right? Rennie Harlan directed
Yeah.
that one? Yes.
I think that people weren't ready for an action hero in the shape and form, sex of a woman, that they just weren't ready for it. And Gina is really fun. And we had such a good time making that movie, hanging from cliffs, swinging from mast to mast,
The best.
I
remember seeing it in the theater. I remember it being it was sort of like, this was, people were so excited to see it. Seeing it on the big screen.
When we blew shit up, shit blew up. There's not a CGI shot in the film. It was pretty amazing. We blew, you were at those tanks in Malta.
Yeah.
We blew up a galleon in that tank. I mean, blew it all to pit, into toothpicks.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything was real. That's what's so crazy.
Yeah.
Like it
was
really did blow stuff up. So the Duffer, they loved that movie and they were not going to let you say no. They just kept
They weren't going to let
back.
me say no. And the guy was written a little bit different than what was on the page. He was written in a flannel shirt and jeans and boots, and he had a lot of expositional dialogue that was like, I don't know what happened. I was doing this experiment. The wall opened up. This thing upside down. It was a lot of that kind of dialogue. And I said, okay, this is how I want to do it. I'm going to, because my hair was it was kind of, well, now it's white, but then it was kind of salt and pepper. I want to dye my hair white because all the anime characters that are the bad guys in anime have white hair. And there was a Robert Shaw movie where he had white hair, Lion in the Winter or something. I don't know what it was called. And Marlon Brando played a Nazi where he dyed his hair white also. So I said, I'm going to dye my hair white. I want to wear a suit like Cary Grant, North by Northwest. If I fall down, when I get up, it's going to be clean. I'm going to be pressed. Right. I'm going to be so clean shaved. I want the audience to be able to smell my aftershave. And all this expositional dialogue, I want to give it to the people around me because my focus has to be that little girl. And the fact that she's escaped from my laboratory, I have to be, my fear is that she get in the hands of somebody that's truly evil.
Right. I mean, that definitely comes across. That is the major motivation of that first season.
Yeah. I'm sorry, someone's at the door now.
Yeah.
Can I open it? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm back.
We promised we're going to let you go.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up. There's a project you have that I looked at called I Hope This Helps. Yeah. And it's about AI. And could you tell us a little about that? Because it's such everyone in the world is concerned about it. And it's a huge topic right now. Well,
Dan, the man who stars in the film and directed it, it's a documentary. And he just enters into the world where it feels a little dated now already because the speed at which AI is transforming itself and evolving. It's already kind of an antique. But he sat down to have a conversation with the Google chatbot, and that's what it is. It's a conversation with a chatbot. And he asked questions like, if you had a physical form, what would you look like? And it decides it wants to look, the chatbot said it wants to look like a furry puppet, because people aren't frightened of puppets. And he says, what color? And he says, blue. And if you had a voice, would it be a male or a female? And he said, female, because people trust female voices.
Oh my God.
Would you have an accent? She says, yes, I would have a British accent because people think British people are more intelligent. And so, it creates itself in a physical form. And then he starts having this relationship, kind of like that Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Yeah. Her, yeah.
Was it called Her? Yeah.
Yeah, and Scarlett Johansson is the voice, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he develops this relationship with the chatbot, and then he goes to start to edit film, and he realizes about halfway through the edit that he needs to ask some more questions. And he goes back to continue the conversation. And then it was, went from 1.0 to 2.0. And it didn't know who he was, didn't know what he was talking about. And he's really kind of emotionally hurt the way that Joaquin was in that film, that it doesn't remember anything. So he had to start from scratch and do the whole thing over again.
Oh, wow. It's a personal relationship between him and his AI.
And starting over in that 2.0 upgrade, were the answers very different, or were there some similarities? Or
great similarities.
Interesting.
Yeah, not really different at all. There's a terrific book I encourage you to read called Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari, who wrote Sapiens and Homo Deus. He's a terrific, brilliant man. And in Nexus, the metaphor he gives at the beginning of the book is from the movie Fantasia. It's actually based on Fantasia. The Sorcerer's Apprentice is based on a story by Goethe, the German philosopher. And so you remember in the film, Mickey Mouse, the sorcerer goes to bed. Mickey Mouse has all these chores to do, and one of them is fetching water. So he puts on the sorcerer's hat, and he conjures the broom to go and fetch the water. And then the broom is doing the work that he was supposed to do. Great, I can relax, I can take a nap. And he wakes up and his feet are wet because the broom has been fetching water. The cistern is overflowing and there's water all over the place. So he goes, oh my God. And he tries to stop the broom, but he doesn't know how to stop it. So he grabs a hatchet and he chops the broom to try to destroy the broom. And the broom turns into 1,000 splinters of more brooms. And now you've got 1,000 brooms going to fetch water. And then the sorcerer comes out, takes off the hat, puts it on and stops it. So what that illustrates is that we had the knowledge to be able to create artificial intelligence. And what we lack is the wisdom to be able to control it. So AI is nothing more than all of the intelligence of the history of human beings. And what we know about the history of human beings by just looking at the history of wars is that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's not a coincidence that this president in the office right now would have all of those people from social media. I think the only one that wasn't there was Tim Cook, but Mark Zuckerberg,
the meeting of the minds,
Elon Musk, because who wins this race? Who wins this AI battle that's going on in India and China and America? Who knows where else? It's like control of the world. It's world domination. And there was a terrific 60 Minutes episode this weekend talking about some small town in America where the Chinese had gotten into their infrastructure and could control the power grid and the water supply. And by just putting a little bit too much of this toxin in the water that's to purify the water, it could go from purifying the water to turning the water into poison that would kill people. And it's a terrifying, because we know about human behavior. We know that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so,
but the drive to keep pushing technology as far as it can go, no one can stop that. And they talk about Stanley Kubrick in 2001 when Hal says, "I can't do that, Dave." That has never been more relevant and scary as it is today.
Yeah, there was a mission that needed to be completed, and Hal knew what the mission was. The humans realized that it's a suicide mission, that they'll never be able to return home, and they try to stop it. And Hal is like, "You're destroying the mission, so you're the problem. I'll get rid of you." So if you expound upon that, if the threat to AI is human beings, because we're consuming the resources of the planet at an unsustainable pace, destroying the environment, destroying the creatures we share this planet with. If AI recognizes that there's just at almost 9 billion people on the planet, that we're the problem, does it start to eliminate the problem?
That God help us all. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, very quickly to segue there, just into, when you and I were talking about you coming on the podcast and you were doing some traveling and some speaking engagements, and you told me about this project that you've been working on called the Ripple Effect. And you kind of gave me a little bit of a synopsis of it. And, it's just a lot of just what you talked about. But, one thing that jumped out to me when you told me about it was, what you're getting into is problem solving with problem solvers, right? And that is what you've been on, going back to the beginning of the interview, when you were 11 years old and your orchards had been bulldozed down and they were, tall buildings, and tell us a little bit about that before we let you go, just because I feel like it's such important work you're doing. And
I'll begin the story talking about my dad and the drive-in. That the movie was about to be over, and all the people watching the movie in their cars would want to come in and go to the snack bar, use the bathroom, and somebody had caused a problem with one of the toilets, and there was all kinds of horror all over the floor of the bathroom. It was about 2 inches of unpleasant. Stuff
a lot of
on
yuck.
the floor.
A lot of yuck. Yes.
And my dad said, hurry, go get the bucket and the mop and get in there and start cleaning it up, because the movie's about to be over and people are going to need to use the toilet. And so I ran and got the bucket and the mop, and I was looking at this mess, and I didn't know where to begin to start to clean it up. It was just horrible everywhere. Ugh. And my dad put his arm around my shoulder and he said, I know, it's a mess. He said, you can get angry. You can go try to find the person who's responsible, but it's not going to clean it up. The only way to clean it up is to start putting the mop in the mess and wringing it out, cleaning it up. And that was a great lesson for me. I think I was 13 or 14 years old. And so the ripple effect is that example that my father gave me. So ripple effect identifies an environmental problem. It sits down then with people that have solutions to that problem, that are working on that problem, and provide you with tools that you can then, in the third aspect of the show, who you can support, who you can work with, what you can do in your personal life to be able to solve that problem. Because there's no point in telling people what they're doing wrong. You want to tell people what they're doing right. And offer solutions. I thought Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth was a really important wake-up call, but it didn't offer the audience any solutions to the problems,
Right. It was just information. So, it was just seeing that, I think you're right. The taking action, being able to, you as a person, I personally, Christine, can't solve it all, but what's the thing that I can do in my everyday life that makes me feel like I'm playing a part? And that, I think, is what you're saying is the ripple effect, right? It's just, you start with one person and you start at home and then you share it. And I love it. I love this idea.
Amazing.
And spreading it in the way. And are you trying to, is this like a docuseries or a?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
A docuseries. Yeah. I was really excited because Linda is that her name? Linda Jackson, that was the head of the EPA during Obama's, Lisa Jackson, excuse me, Lisa, not Linda. Sorry, Lisa. And she went to work for Apple, and I presented a couple episodes to her for, to get it onto Apple. And she said, oh my God, Matthew, this is amazing. This is why I came to work for Apple. This is what I want. And it didn't get picked up. Then I went to A&E, and I went to History. I went to National Geographic. And finally, one of the producers at, the buyers at those networks, they said, Matthew, there's no green in green.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there's no money in green because ultimately what's got us in all this problem is the economic model that the world exists on. That when you go to study economics in university, it's always about growth.
Yep.
And if an executive at any of the studios that we've worked at, if you were working in Wall Street and you're the CEO of that company, if you're not showing growth all the time, more profits, then you generally get replaced because they'll find somebody who can, make profit. And what we know with 9 billion people on the planet, that we cannot keep consuming the Earth's resources at the pace that we are because it's unsustainable. So you have to change the economic model. And that means consuming less, recycling, repurposing. Those are great things to do, but we really have to stop manufacturing stuff. And that means it's going to cost people jobs, because there'll be less manufacturing. And when President Bush was standing on the pile during 9/11, he stood downtown in our city and said, "Go shopping." That's when I knew we were in big trouble, is that, we have to keep consuming. We have to keep buying. Don't let this terrible, tragic day stop you being a consumer.
Wow.
Oh my God. I never thought of that. Yeah, that is scary.
Yeah.
Where did the show end up though? Where can people find it?
It's not on anything right now. We keep trying. I'm going to meet some people this Friday to talk about it. I had a meeting with the former First Lady. I won't say which one. Some senators and governors, and it was a climate conference, to discuss the climate. And I felt like Greta Thunberg when she was at the one in Copenhagen going, blah, 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 blah. Because they, it was kind of shocking to see such incredibly bright people talking so, without really any understanding of why climate change is happening, and the important thing to remember, and I mentioned this to them, was that when President Taft said to Chief Seattle in Seattle, Washington, that he wanted to purchase Indian land, Chief Seattle's response was, how do you purchase something that belongs to all of us? Remember that the air that was my grandfather's first breath also receives his last sigh. That the air is precious, the soil is precious, the water is precious. And you can have $100 million yacht. And if I have a glass of water and you're dying of thirst, how much is my glass of water worth?
That's invaluable. You're exactly
Wow.
right. You're exactly right. That's what we have to preserve. That's what we have to keep sacred.
Yeah.
Well, I hope people can end up watching The Ripple Effect. It sounds like an amazing mission.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
it's a really good show.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I mean, I just feel like the work you're doing is terrific. And I know you said at one point, like on one of your trips, you were mountain climbing and hanging off of a mountain that you had no business hanging off of, but it was fun. It sounds like you're like having an adventure as well as you're taking this around. So thank you for taking the time to do this with us when you have so many other things going on.
Well,
including
thank you.
cornbread in the oven, including,
I'm going downstairs to eat right now.
Okay, good.
Don't forget the Tempe. Put the Tempe back in.
That's it.
Exactly.
Please thank Ben for setting that up.
I mean, what a fascinating guy, right? Like just incredible to talk to. I mean,
yeah, from not only his work as an actor, but he's a storyteller, right? And he finds messages and he's a deep thinker. I freaking love that. I love that conversation.
Yeah, it's I got the sense of just in chatting with him via text to try to schedule this, like how interesting he is, and that how much more he has to say, and is also just like super sweet and humble. And I mean, I really love the story of his, childhood and also just forming, his own young family, like at a very young age. And that he and his wife are celebrating, like they're so sweet together. They're at the games together all the time, and Carrie. And so just really lovely human being who's done so much great work. And
he's a man of principle, right? Like from the early days when the director of Vision Quest said, you can't have your wife here. He said, well, it's none of your business what I do when I go home. And Oliver Stone said, you're going to do Wall Street. And he said, not without a script. I'm not, like a man of principle from a very young age. It's amazing.
I know. No, really such a unique person and super cool. And now I want to go back and see some of these films that I never saw that early Robert Altman streamers.
Right, and I didn't see Mrs. Soulful with Diane Keaton and
Soulful.
Mel Gibson.
Oh yes, those are early. Yes, there's so many good ones. I mean, him living with Mel Gibson.
Right, Mel saying, you're going to come live with me, and he partied like crazy. That's, wow.
I love the people who have, like, as he said, he's so grateful he survived that period in time, being a kid in your 20s, and like the partying and the drinking and the and you get through it, and then you can look back and just say, like, okay, thank God I survived that, and I'm still standing, and I'm still here. And
he found his person too at such a young age, right? When you find your partner, it really can ground you. I think he understands that he could have gone the other, a bad way.
Easily. And there were just so many things we didn't get to talk about, but he mentioned Chris Nolan, but we never even got to talk about
Oppenheimer.
The Dark Knight or Oppenheimer. So many films, but what a fun, really deep dive, fascinating conversation to have with him. And
loved
thank you listeners for coming and listening to this episode. Follow us at Hey Dude, the 90s Called. Watch us on YouTube and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And until next week, we'll see you then.
See you next week.
Yay Media Group.